Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Soul Vibes in 2022. Today, as your guides through this episode, I am David.
And I'm Navitesh.
Sant Nirankari. What an amazing and interesting year 2021 has been. It seems as if it's the new year, but say me.
Absolutely, David G. It seems as if the years continue to pass us and we continue to restate the same goals that we had set for the beginning of the previous year without much progress or success on actually achieving those goals.
You know, psychologists have said the majority of the New Year's resolutions are already in failure within the week.
Really?
Yes. So many people make New Year's resolutions, and within the first week, about 80% have already failed.
Wow.
People have cheated on their diets, skipped their workouts. However, today, we have a wonderful group of experts from one coast of Canada to the other. These are doctors, professionals, lawyers, accountants, authors, and what really unites them is that they have a deep awareness of this vast formless energy, also known as Nirankar. They are highly deep and spiritual thinkers.
I'm really excited for this episode and to learn from all these speakers.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to begin with Shubhiji. Shubhiji, in his profession, is an accountant. Can you tell us, what do you think when the new year began? Are you the same Shubhiji as you were from 2021 and prior?
Nirankari David G. Well, thanks for having me on. That's a very interesting question. But I'm going to be completely transparent, and I would say it's probably the same me. You know, there's three types of people in this world. There's those who wake up in the morning, turn off their alarm. There's those people who turn off their alarm and go back to sleep. And then there's those like me who are snoozers. And I keep snoozing. I keep pressing the snooze button. And like you said, I think we're a few days into the new year and I've already forgotten what my resolutions are. But one thing that comes to mind, it's interesting that you bring this up. Baba Hardev Singh Ji once in his Vichar said, that we break our resolutions pretty quick. And he gave a very good example of, stray dogs just making a decision one day saying, look, everybody disrespects us. Nobody looks at us, in a good way. Let's stop fighting with each other. Let's stop quarreling with each other. And the moment they made this decision, there's an eagle that drops a piece of flesh from the sky, and it falls right in the middle of where they're having the discussion. And all the dogs go after each other and start fighting again. And that's what I feel like. I make resolutions, but I break them within a second. And then Hazur, the way he tied this back was that in order to be able to keep your resolutions, we need to have a resolute mind. That's the most important part. So I guess that's where I want to go with this, is that the resolution I want to keep is have a resolute mind. And how do I do that? Always stay connected to Nirankar, always in everything I do. And that's brings me to the concept, the point of Simran, right? For Simran, when I'm trying to focus, one thing I've been practicing over the years, over and over and over again, is that whenever a negative thought comes to my mind or anything that creeps in any ego, I try to start doing Simran in my head. And I've tried to practice this over and over the years, and to the point it's become a bit automatic. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect, but when something does come into my mind, this Simran starts automatically going through my head, which really helps, and it will help bring that resolute mind that I want to work towards. I do struggle though. I definitely do struggle. And in the Hardev Bani, Baba Hardev Singh Ji said something so beautifully and so simple, that bhav kabhi vipreet apne man ke andar aaye na, agar kabhi aa jaye bhi to pal bhar bhi tik paye na. And Hazur is saying, look, we're not perfect. These vipreet bhav, these negative thoughts do come in our mind. Agar kabhi aa jaye bhi to pal bhar bhi tik paina, and that's where the Simran kicks in. That's where the awareness kicks in. And that's what I want to work towards. Over the holiday break, when I'm trying to focus during Simran, I'm out of my routine, trying to sit there and do Simran. There's a lot of thoughts that go through my mind. So of course, I want to hear from all of you today and see, what are you doing? How are you trying to work towards making a resolute mind for yourself? How are you connecting to Nirankar? What are some of the techniques that you use to be able to continue to do Simran?
So nice of you to really explain openly and transparently, your experience and, the whole idea of the resolute mind and how, you did things to overcome challenges and really create that resolute mind. Now I'd like to turn to Akankshaji, who is our medical professional, a doctor, and who belongs to that medical space. So I'd love to hear, her thoughts and her ideas on this. Akankshaji.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think this is a really interesting topic, and definitely when it comes to developing a resolute mind, I think what's really important to consider is what are the small changes that I can make, we can all make in our lives that allow us to be more present. Because I think it's very easy to get caught up in quote unquote life, so to speak, and doing so a lot of the times we start to lose sight of ourselves, but also our own spirituality. I think speaking for me personally, when I started my medical training last year, I transitioned into the role of a senior resident. And so I took on a lot more responsibility. And as a result of that, I found the transition incredibly hard. I was getting more irritable. I was really easily flustered, at times even angry. And a couple days went by like this, a couple weeks, almost 1 to 2 months passed by. And I just felt very stuck. I was in this funk that I couldn't find myself being able to get out of. And it was only after quite a bit of time had passed, David G, that I really realized I felt this way because I hadn't really taken the time out to do Simran. I was just really getting caught up in the motions of life. And I wasn't really taking the time to be by myself, to be present, and to really connect and do Simran and to be with Nirankar.
So what did you do then to find that connection with yourself and Nirankar? What are some of the things you did?
Yeah, so I think for me, depending on the situations that I'm in, there are different techniques that I'll use in order to sort of recalibrate myself and bring myself back to the present moment and to feel more aware of Nirankar around me. I think it's really about the small things that we can implement in our lives, simple things like setting a reminder on my phone throughout the day to remind myself to do Simran. Or say I find myself in a challenging situation, I take a couple seconds to keep my emotions in check so that I'm not reacting harshly in any sort of way. Spending time being out in nature and going on walks and sort of just unplugging and feeling myself being in the present moment in that way. Listening to music or Voice Divine or, podcasts such as this one while I'm driving. I think these are all very simple and practical ways that I found helpful to myself in helping to cultivate awareness and bringing myself back into the now and to feeling more connected to Nirankar in my day-to-day. And it's interesting because the science is out there. It tells us that cultivating awareness of the present moment, it reduces stress. It promotes overall well-being mentally and also physically through, a variety of neurohormonal modulation. And so going into this new year, I know I can speak for myself and others. My resolution really is to play an active role in my own spirituality by working on cultivating this deeper awareness of the present moment, of the now, and to really make an effort to connect with Nirankar that exists within all of us and around us.
Thank you so much for sharing your honesty and, transparency and your experiences of how you dealt with those challenges. I mean, it really, brings us to a point where in times of crisis or times of challenges where we can use these techniques and these ideas to really connect with Nirankar and ourselves. To this end, what do you think, Navitesh?
Absolutely. As we've been going through these pandemic times for almost 2 years now, something that we have really been dealing with are things that are absolutely out of our control. Lots of negative and positive forces, and we can really use some guidance on how to deal with them. We have with us here Robin G, who is an enterprise problem manager from Toronto, and Niharika G, who is a lawyer practicing family law in Alberta. Welcome to Soul Vibes, G. Robin G, your title sounded very interesting, and forgive me, but a little funny as well. As a problem manager, what is it that you really do?
Dhanikar Navitesh, it's funny, isn't it? So I work in IT. Whenever there's a disruption in service, a team tries to solve that problem as quickly as possible. Once done, they hand it over to my team. My team's role is to try and figure out the root cause for the problem. In addition, we try to look for any contributing factors, and more importantly, our job is to figure out what can be done so that it doesn't happen again.
Looks like we can all use a problems manager in our lives. Can you please share an example of your experience of dealing with negativity and positivity in your life?
Before I do that, I just wanted to share my resolution for the year 2022. And it's two words. What if? Let me explain. My family has been dealing with a health issue for over 4 years now. And if there's one thing that we have learned is that positive and negative will always be part and parcel of life. I'm reminded of a quote that was often used by His Holiness Baba Hardev Singh Ji Maharaj. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. And the word that stands out is experience. What if everything that happens to me and around me, if I just looked at it as an experience? Not good, not bad, just an experience. And then, what if I learned to accept both of them with an open mind and not by fear? What if I accept them as part and parcel of life? What if we accepted the negative, put it on the back seat, and then move forward with a positive outlook? Now, positive outlook is very different from a positive experience. Positive outlook compels you to do your best. Even when dealing with someone with a negative approach, positive outlook allows you to give them what we call in sports the benefit of the doubt. What if I look at it thinking, maybe what seems negative to me may not be the same for the other person? In the last couple of years, we've seen the world divided, and either side calls the other side negative. And this has led to conflict. So what if we gave each other the benefit of the doubt and say to each other, hey, you know what? I may not understand your point of view. I may not agree to it, but I'm willing to listen to you. What if we accepted that plus and minus are there for a reason in mathematics and in the world? Positive and negative, they need to coexist. We need to go through both these experiences together, thinking of them just as experiences.
That is beautiful. When we realize that we are spiritual beings, it really changes our perspective of life. His Holiness Baba Hardev Singh Ji is so beautifully teaching us in the Sampuran Hardev Vani that Tu Puran hai, tera sara intizam bhi puran hai. Tere har vidhan mein data, teri daya ka darshan hai. Niharika ji, I want to hear your experiences now. As a lawyer, I can imagine that it must not have been a very straight line from the day you decided to pursue law to the day you actually became a lawyer. What has your take been on the idea that failure is learning?
Thank you, Navitesh. It's funny you ask me that actually, because my journey to get to where I am right now in life hasn't been a very linear one. I actually really wanted to practice in New York when I graduated law school, and I spent about a year and a half of my life trying to study for the New York bar exam, which was quite tough. I wrote it a few times, and unfortunately, I didn't get the results that I wanted to. I fell a few points short, and I have never experienced failure like that in my life, especially in a situation where I invested so much time and energy into achieving something that I really wanted to. And I remember feeling so lost. And I think a lot of us, when we experience failure, it's normal to feel ashamed and to feel discouraged. But I didn't know how to pick myself back up after that. I let it define my self-worth, my self-esteem. I didn't know how to face my family and friends. And I felt so discouraged that I didn't even know if I wanted to practice law or if I could practice law, all because of one exam. And, after a while of feeling sorry for myself, I talked to a friend and they told me, Niharika, it's been a while now and you worked really hard at this, but if you're going to fail, then fail forward. Learn something from this situation, pick yourself back up. There's always something that you can learn from when you fall down. And after that day, I think my entire perception of what I was going through changed. It's kind of like I just woke up. And, I look back at that time in my life and I realized that, it's normal to feel those feelings that you're experiencing, especially when you're in a situation where you invested so much. But true failure is not when we're rejected or prevented from receiving something that we defined as success or we perceive as success according to our desires. But failure is when we give up on ourselves and we give up on what's truly important in life. We give up on our spirituality, our connection with God. We let small materialistic things define our worth, define our relationship, our connection. That is what failure is, and that is something that we should fear and be scared of. But there's always something that we can learn when we're not given a particular situation, because we just see a part of the picture when Nirankar knows and sees and creates the entire painting. So it's very important when we're not at the highest point of our life to just pick ourselves up with grace and fail forward and always learn something, a part of that experience.
I think a lot of our listeners can relate to your experience and benefit from your words, myself included, as I'm also waiting for the results of an exam I wrote. Listening to you, I'm reminded of the cardiac monitors to which a patient is connected, and we can see the rhythm of their heart with the ups and downs, where life is indicated by the lines going up and down, and it's not a straight line of smooth sailing, but rather consists of learning through these experiences. Thank you, Robinji and Niharikaji, for your beautiful thoughts. David G, now I'm curious, how can we really bring spirituality into practicality?
Navitesh ji, this is an amazing point. This is where really we say the rubber meets the road. How are we going to live this out properly? And to this end, we have another amazing expert with us, an author in the self-motivation, self-positivity, positive mindset space, Preeti ji, who will share some tips with us to what can be done to make sure that all of these beautiful philosophies are something practical.
Thank you, David G. I think the key to creating a new me in this new year is focusing on creating a healthy emotional state, which can be achieved by living in a state of gratitude and surrender. And as Shubhiji was very beautifully mentioning about Simran, which is all about staying connected to Nirankar all the time, according to my personal experience, I feel that we being realized souls who have attained the realization of this all-pervading consciousness, the moment we feel ourselves overpowered by negativity, even if we refer to the context of the ongoing pandemic, we see that there's so much of negativity flowing from everywhere, whether we see the media or switch on news channels. So I think it is imperative that in order to safeguard our emotional health from the adverse impacts of the ongoing chaotic scenarios, we need to introspect ourselves by asking the question that who's the executor of all that I see happening around me? Who's the master planner? And the answer is one and only Nirankar. Now we need to reflect that this power, which is working in my favor 24/7, cannot create anything against me, as this power loves me and is protecting me all the time. So I realized that perceiving every situation as a blessing in disguise revives our blissful state. And I very strongly believe that the implementation of this realization in our day-to-day life and our constant connection to this all-pervading consciousness is a real game changer when it comes to living a stress-free life and attaining that state of mental poise and emotional stability. And I think only once we attain this state, we can make a positive contribution in the world, as Satguru Mata mentioned in her discourses, that we should live our life in such a way that we become a blessing for mankind.
Preeti ji, thank you so much for your tips and ideas on what we can do to really, in our practical everyday life, use these tools to enhance our spirituality and really our happiness as well. And I really believe that we lack the connection to ourselves. We lack the connection to Nirankari. We really have to practice that, whether it's in solitude or with a group of like-minded people, also known as satsang. And the realization of God that we really have to focus on and understand is we have to feel God in our life. We have to feel that force, that energy, that never-ending bliss within our life at every step. After listening to everybody, I think that everyone has changed. They have grown. They've gone through their journey and are learning more and more and growing their spirit, growing their attitude, growing their ability to take on challenges. So after listening to all these experiences, I know initially we said, New Year, same me, but everyone has changed. I think it's New Year, new me.
Definitely. And I think it's an important reminder for us to also remember that if we haven't been able to carry on our resolutions from the new year, we can still start today or we can start tomorrow. We can pick up where we left off. We don't have to wait for the next January 1st to bring those good changes into our lives. And technically, every day is the beginning of a new year. As our speakers have shared, it is those difficult parts of our lives that turn out to be the most important experience that we had to go through to really grow through.
I really love what you said there. And you know, when I really think about it, it's actually a spiritual revolution through a spiritual resolution. What I mean by that is, what really changes within? When we look at the teachings of Satguru Mataji, we know that we are a spirit, we're a soul, and the soul has never changed. It's always been there, it is here, it'll always be here. So what is it that really changes? What causes this spiritual revolution within? It is the Brahm Gyan. And what absorbs the Brahm Gyan is the mind and the soul. Baba Hardev Singh Ji Maharaj used to say that the Brahm Gyan is for the mind and the soul, because when the mind gets absorbed in Nirankari, everything becomes one, the same, and the change happens within.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much, David G, for such important reminders that we really need to start adapting into our lives.
Thank you to all of our wonderful speakers and listeners on this amazing journey within and without. May everyone be blessed with positivity and strength to carry out their goals and dreams, and may your souls vibe.
Tan Nirankari.